He's gonna take you back in time and space to play a shitty game on the Wii. He'd rather watch Orphan 55 or even fucking Fear Her. He'd rather eat a Dalek anus or shit out a Slovene from his ass. He's the angriest Hoovian you've ever heard. He's the most obsessed, crazy Hoovian. He's the stupidest. I don't know. Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the Wii game Doctor Who Return to Earth, created by Asylum Entertainment, not to be confused with the low-budget film straight-to-DVD company of the same name, although they got this very similar quality, with a script for the story written by Oil Smith, who is actually a prominent writer for the series. This was quite a big deal when it came out. I remember when the announcement came out that BBC and Nintendo were in a deal to make a video game based on the series for the revived era of the show. And of course, as a Doctor Who fan, and at the time I was a massive gamer, especially for the Nintendo Wii, it felt like a dream come true. It was announced in March of 2010 and was reportedly made for £10 million. This cost people £10 million. Well, this, and they also made a game for the Nintendo DS, Evacuation Earth. However, I don't have a copy of that game, so I won't be able to vlog about that episode, about that game. But we're talking about Return to Earth. It was announced in March. It was then had its title revealed in August. It was released in November that year. Now, I know a lot of people who watch this vlog probably don't know much about game development, but usually games take about a year at least to get made, if you're talking about like the bare minimum. This game had 8 months, and it was also during the same time as development of another Doctor Who game. There was no hope in hell that this game was going to be any good. And the fact that Nintendo would just shove this off to not only a third-party company so that they can get somebody else to make the game, but Asylum Entertainment was I don't think they ever made another Wii game. They've done a very handful of smaller little games, including such like Bob the Builder games. So it wasn't looking promising. But this game is considered not only a bad Wii game, but it's considered one of, if not the worst game on the console. That is saying a lot, as though the Wii is, in my opinion, a great console with many great games, even I can admit that it has a few stinkers. And to be the top of the stinking pile, that's actually kind of commendable in a sense. But, you know, it's considered by many as the worst game on the Wii, which is just, you know, shocking. Nicholas Briggs, who voices the Daleks and the Cybermen, actually doesn't return here. Matt Smith and Karen Gillan reprise their roles, so you can easily get immersed in the story with them, giving off the dialogue. However, the Daleks and the Cybermen, I believe they're voiced by a person named Alistair Smith. It's Alistair something. But speaking of the creative team on this, the an important note onto this game is that in the 3D modeling department for this game, one of the artists was Sam Kent Smith, which might not be an important name for most people, but he is actually the son of 7th Doctor Sylvester McCoy, a son of an official classic Doctor, helped to make a game for a revived series Doctor. I will admit, that's pretty cool. So this is the actual game cover with the Doctor, Amy and the Cybermen, kind of leaving, I was going to say, it kind of leaves the Daleks' appearance as a surprise. However, if I remember correctly, they're in the trailer and they're on the back but I guess it doesn't show the importance of them villains. But anyway, this is the official cover, and I don't know why. Some people might even question why I did this. I printed out a DVD cover. So let's put these together and have a look, shall we? 1, 2, 3. There you go. So this is what it looks like when it's on my shelf. I do put it with the DVDs instead of my Wii collection, which is pretty funny. That's the cover. It's a bit pants, I know, but what can I really do? Here's the spine, if anyone's interested. Again, it does kind of look kind of weak, but yeah, I do like how I put the Wii thing still on it, and the Doctor Who logo kind of like bleeds over it. And here's the back as well, showing the final boss, a Cyberman and Amy, and you got the controls there. And you've also got like a mix of the classic DVD cover and the bit at the bottom of a Wii game. I don't think it's accurate to the game itself, but let's be honest, who's keeping score? So anyway, when I talk about games, I'd rather talk about the gameplay and the mechanics of the game. However, because this is a vlog series talking about the canonicity of Doctor Who, let's talk a little bit about the story. There is a bit of story in this game, but to say that it's not interesting is an understatement. The Doctor and Amy arrive on a crashing ship that's heading towards Earth, the SS Lucy Gray, which the Doctor actually knows as part of history. It's one of the first ships to ever arrive back on Earth after the solar flares. So in a sense, it ties into the storyline that continued on from the Ark in Space and follows through into stories like The Beast Below, with this ship being similar to the Ark in Space, heading back to Earth, and the Doctor knows it in history as the first ship to do that. However, it seems to be in a lot of danger. There's a lot of meteors striking it, and everybody on board the ship seems to have disappeared. And also as well, it seems like that the maintenance droids there have become deadly, trying to kill our main characters. And the first few levels, there are 16 levels overall, which makes it feel really short. I'm not the kind of person who is great at video games. It usually takes me a long while, at least a month or two, to complete a game. I beat this in about 3 days, which is quite surprising, really. And later on, we learned the reason why, all the people are is that they're in suspended animation. However, it turns out that the ship put them in suspended animation after contacted with the cyber leader, which you don't really get a good look on here. There's a really they kind of built up the appearance of the cyber leader, who in this game, instead of having a 3-through bit in its head. It has kind of like this crack on its eye, whether that's to do with the crack in time. I guess you could fan theory that. But they kind of like built it up, and then that kind of plot kind of like disappears. It's kind of like the middle act, the Cybermen act, and they appear throughout a lot of it. There's a lot of hard levels with the Cybermen, but then when the Doctor basically they have to you have to disactivate the main engines so that the ship will go on backup power and automatically put the ship up to its AI, which recognizes the Doctor and Amy on a previous visit, which ties into Evacuation Earth. Because despite Evacuation Earth coming out a week earlier in the game, in real life, this is actually a sort of prequel of sorts, as this story has the Doctor and Amy arrive after the events of Evacuation Earth, but it's here where they basically learn key elements where it ties into the story, where they go back in time and save the SS Lucy Gray earlier on in its timeline. So that's actually kind of cool. They got these two games that tie into each other in a plot line like that, where depending on which way your point of view is, which one you play first, it's either the games for the Wii, and then the DS, or if you're going by the Doctor and Amy's point of view, it's the Wii and then the DS game. So I think that's personally pretty cool. But the disappointing is that the Cybermen are really just are not that interesting here in terms of a plot, in terms of a game structure. We'll talk about the game structure later on, but literally when you reactivate the ship and everything starts flipping, there's a scene where the Doctor gets captured by the Cybermen and he's taken to the Cyber Leader. When you start his next level on, after Amy had disactivated the main engines, you see the Doctor in essentially the courtroom of the Cyber Leader, and he's kind of just like a character in the background. I don't even think he gets up, and you just walk past him. It's really disappointing. But it turns out that they've actually tried to augment the ship to try and be a time machine, as they have stolen technology from the Daleks. And the Daleks have discovered this, leading into the final act of the story, in which the Daleks appear. And so the Doctor has to go in and defeat these are the paradigm Daleks that we've seen in Victory of the Daleks. So technically this is the second big story that they arrived in. It's important to note as well that during this time we also had the free Doctor Who The Adventure games on PC, and there was also a Paradigm Dalek game there. In fact, highly recommend the Adventure games. I'm not going to talk about them because they're at present time they are very hard to find, as they've been like disactivated on many sites and accounts, and of course I don't have a laptop to play them or a computer to play them, but the fact, like, that game looks so much better than this. I've played the Gunpowder one, but yeah, go the Adventure games, check those out. We're talking about this game now, and I do actually like the build up of the Cybermen, the Daleks, sorry, as you get that iconic Dalek sound of their ship, rump 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 rump, as you see their ship appearing from the windows as then they enter, giving them a bit of build up, a bit of suspense. I do actually kind of like that, and so that's basically the narrative of the game. That, you know, that's the you go from the first half is the maintenance droids, the Cybermen is the second half, and then the final act, which I believe it's from levels 10 to 16, are the Dalek story. So who wants to talk about the actual game now? let's start off with graphics. This game looks horrible. I mean, the game was created in 8 months. Less than 8 months because they'll have to, like, have it get ready before the game was released. And, of course, when it comes to, like, the announcement as well, so you had to have time to settle all the deals and stuff. But it's less than 8 months the game was in development. No wonder the game looks like this. It looks like all the characters are blocky, with very limited animation. That means that Amy and the Doctor do not move in the way that their TV counterparts move. Though they are very recognizable in a very cartoonish kind of way, when you kind of like zoom up on the graphics, they're almost putrid. They're just a really putrid design with, and because the very limited animation here, what the story does, which I find pretty funny, is that when we cut to voice acting, the camera either is shot from the back or is shot at another character to hide the fact, the character's lips are not moving, which I kind of find pretty funny. But the actual game itself, it's a stealth game. It reminds me a lot of the Metal Gear games. You spend the majority of the game hiding away, maneuvering from enemies. You can't really hurt them, but you can distract them and you can duck to hide, as well as find some corners and some routes that you can take to get away. You can also, another big element of the game are these crystals. Essentially, you will get these obstacles, whether it's fire, a locked door, you need to get these platforms to move, but each of them are activated by, there's these emojis that float up in a nearby area to whatever, and each of them are designated with a different colour. For example, the fire is red. So what you've got to do is you've got to get crystals. You only get 6. You're only allowed to hold 6 at a time, 6 or 7 at a time. And what you do is that you could switch modes of gameplay. Playing normally, you are in a third-person perspective, moving around the characters, and you can hide and stuff. But then you can press A, and you can then activate a first-person perspective where you use the sonic devices. Amy gets a sonic device as well earlier on in the game, so you can use her to use the crystals. And what you do then is that you point the cursor onto these emojis with the right colour crystals, and then you shoot the emojis, and say now you get a red crystal and you hit the red emoji, the fire will dissipate and you can go through that. Now that sounds a lot of simple. However, the game is so needlessly it's very needless. What do I mean by that? Well, for starters, the emoji things that we have to fire do not stand still, and I don't mind that. But a lot of them, like around, and you've got to constantly fire it to try and get the right crystal, to get the right shot. When you're far away, you might even have to try and aim prior to it, as the shot takes kind of like a second or two before it actually gets to its target, meaning that it's really easy to miss. We also have the target, not the target in itself, but the loading of the weapon. To activate the weapon, you press B or Z, depending on which controller you want to use. The game uses a normal Wii control and a nunchuck, for those of you wondering. And you've got to point it at this emoji. Then you've got to hold B for a second, as it doesn't just automatically shoot. It takes this time to build up before you can actually fire a shot. So, just to clarify, you got to, every 2 seconds, when you get to an obstacle like this, you have to get the right crystal, which you only get a very limited amount. You gotta then hold the weapon for at least 3 seconds before you have to shoot at a very small obstacle which moves around like mental, and it's very easy to miss. And you've got to get the right crystals as well. So sometimes you might need to build up on 2 or even 3 different kind of crystals so that you can fire it, which means you only get really 2 or 3 shots depending on the level. But how do you get these crystals? Well, in each designated location, you get a kind of like a robot that pops up from the ground, and they have these crystals, and standing near them replenishes your crystals, with each colour being designated and being scattered around. And what you got to do is you got to pick them up, but you can't just pick them up. If they see you, they go and hide again. So what you got to do is that you got to sneak behind them and then build up your crystals, then go to the location you need to, fire the shots, which takes a while. If you miss, you got to go back. Can you already see how needlessly complicated this is? And they're also normally located in areas and corners, and you have this like view, this like light, and if you're even an inch in this light, the robot will hide. Meaning that you've got to really maneuver yourself around these guys, and it's so tedious. And sometimes you'll be lucky and it'll be very close to where you need to shoot, but sometimes they are very far away and they take ages to get to your location. But also as well, let's talk about the camera angle as well, because the camera angle is notoriously tedious. You can lock into the screen by pressing Z really quick on the nunchuck. You can basically lock it so it's in your current face area, but you constantly find that you'll be doing this and the camera will be switching around. There's also a handful of segments where it's tank controls, where the camera is locked into one location, usually above you, and you've got to maneuver, which is alright and actually pretty fun in some levels. Like there's a great level, I think it's level 15, when you're the doctor and you have to maneuver yourself around some Daleks. And that is pretty fine. But there are some bits, especially, I think it's level 14, when you're aiming and you've got to maneuver yourself through these platforms, and the camera angles at the tank controls are locked onto are always in so awkward positions that a majority of times I fall and I have no idea why. It is just ridiculous. Let's also talk about the villains, because like I said, we get 3 main villains. And the only thing really separating them is that the maintenance droids take 3 shots to kill you, the Cybermen take 2 shots to kill you, and the Daleks take 1 shot to kill you. And they are pretty forgettable as interesting villains to fight around, because they're actually surprisingly easy to maneuver in a majority of sense. But there are also some really annoying moments. You'll get to a lot of levels where, despite you supposedly have to like distract them, because you can also pick up these items which you drop down and it like alerts after like 5 seconds, which will bring nearby enemies to distract the nearby enemies so that you can go behind them. However, the majority of time I find I didn't even have to do that. I can literally just walk past them really quick and shoot. With sometimes they won't even shoot. The AI in this game is utterly horrible, but I will admit it does have some really funny effects, especially when it comes to Daleks, because for the first 2 or 3 levels with the Daleks, the Daleks, when they're alerted, kind of slide backwards. I don't know if there's a glitch on my behalf, but I don't know if anybody else has had this experience, but the Daleks seem to just flap around when they move around. But let's talk about glitches as well, because I found two almost game-breaking glitches. There was one where a Cyberman gets stuck, so he's looking in a direction. He's looking into a direction of Jupiter, but in the corner, just before a stairwell, meaning that he's basically stuck and you can't like distract him. But he's also near one of these robots that disappear, which means that the machine which you need, because it's a blue crystal basically opens the door at the end of the game, leading into a mini game. We'll get into the mini games later, but that meant that for a while I couldn't get the crystal I needed. There was also a level in which you've got to shoot a purple one, and then before you can get through the door, you've got to shoot these 5 other ones, and then you've got to leg it, because when you shoot that purple one, you get a limited time. It's like 14 seconds. And what you're supposed to do is just fire. Hold the button, just keep holding the button, and fire really quickly. However, my game started glitching, in which before it like reloads, the cursor disappears for a bit, giving extra time for it to load, meaning that I physically just couldn't get past it. And it was only until I looked through a playthrough, when I got to the harder bits and bits I couldn't figure out, I watched a Let's Play to try to get through it, did I realise that there was a glitch. Luckily I found a way to work past it. Essentially what I did is, as soon as I shot, I let go of the A button to put it back to third person, and then really quickly put it back into first person, which basically cancels out that disappearing loading cursor thing, which shouldn't have really happened, but I got past it, so no big diggy. And yeah, we also have at the end of every level, when you complete the red, you get a blue crystal, and then you get to the door. You have these mini games. There are 2 variants. You either got this ball maze game where if you hit anything or die, you get sent back to the start, which makes you lose 1 crystal. And they are extremely easy for the most part. Usually you don't even have to think about it. They are so needlessly dull, and there's only a handful of challenges that you get with turbines, which you can shoot these things to slow them down. You've got this door that shutters and opens. You can click a thing which slows it down. You've also got these group of lasers which you can slow down, and then you've also got these spinning like red tops, which again you can also slow down. Those 4 different elements are in every of the maze games, and they do get tedious and a bit dull after a time. However, there are some really hard ones, because in certain levels you will have a shadow ball follow you. Basically it feels like a speed run. However, if the shadow ball gets to you, then you die automatically and you start back at the beginning, losing a blue crystal. If you lose out the blue crystals, the game will kick you back to the end of the level you completed, where you will have to collect more blue crystals and then enter back through the door. There's also these gun moments where you're basically set up on a turret looking outside into space, and you have these comets hitting you whilst an object, sometimes it's Amy, sometimes it's the Doctor, and sometimes it's the TARDIS, or sometimes it's part of the ship, you have to drag in. By pressing B on the controller, you shoot a blue laser which pushes the meteors away from you. If you click Z on the nunchuck, it shoots a green button, a green beam, which pushes things towards you, which is supposed to hit at the Doctor, Amy, the TARDIS, or ship parts. And this is easily the most frustrating part of the game. Despite the fact that I would get really interested in this because it's one of the few times in which I Am the Doctor starts playing, which really is really great game music. But the targeting on the game, oh my god, the targeting on the game. The guns don't automatically, if you take the cursor around and shoot, it doesn't shoot where you need it to be. It'll shoot, like say now the cursor's there, but say now you were there, and then you move the cursor there. The laser will kind of shoot there. So if there's a meteor there, and you have pointed at the meteor, it'll shoot beside it. And you've got to shoot it a few times before it can center, or you can try and, which is probably the best, you can try and maneuver it so you take it a bit too far, shoot it, and just hope that the beams hit. Sometimes as well, even when you hit the beam in the right place, it'll just not do anything, so you're just constantly firing. Luckily these bits are really short, but I did find myself constantly needing blue crystals to try and to complete these small little levels. But I think the main problem with this game is not that it's bad per se. I mean, it's not good either, but I did get through it. I did get through it without a handful of issues. Maybe issues that actually made the game a lot easier, like I said, with the enemy's AI being like all over the place, and you can easily just go past a few monsters. Despite there are certain segments when you're in a closed off area, you need to get crystals, you need to stop and fire, but however, you've got like villains coming at you all over the place, and you've just got to be extremely fast. And though these scenes are few and far between, in fact I counted about 3, which were really stressful, that's not about it. There's only 3 levels are like that. Well, 3 moments in a level. But yeah, that's the main problem with this game. It's not really that it's bad, which it is, but that it's just utterly boring. When you play about a few seconds of the game, well, not really the first, when you get to the second level, you've essentially done everything that you could have. The first level, I wouldn't say the first level, however, the first level is just Amy getting to one point of the ship to the other, and despite the fact that this is a very short game, means that that's just a complete waste of a level. We also have, let's talk about as well, the final boss, because the final segment is essentially the Doctor going up to, Amy goes back to the TARDIS after it has fallen out from the ship. She retrieves it using the guns I mentioned and arrives in the TARDIS, whilst the Doctor goes to meet the Dalek. I don't know what the leader of a Paradigm Dalek is. The white one, the leader of the Paradigm Daleks. We essentially meet up with this white Dalek, and they build it up as it's going to be this epic finale. And I was ready. I was hooked. I was like, okay, this is going to be one of those really tediously, annoyingly hard bits. I'm ready to sweat my ass off to at least, just get this over and done with. In a way, I was kind of looking forward to having a really big challenge. I love it when villains at the end of a game, the final boss, are extremely challenging, because when you beat that, you kind of get this, when you finish it and you see those credits and you just put a smile on your face. How is the final boss, shall we say? Well, what you have is that you, right next to this dome that the white Dalek's in, which you don't know at the time, you have one for purple, the robots are one for purple and one for blue. You shoot the purple one, which opens up the casing and reveals the white Dalek is in this location. He claims he's going to exterminate the Doctor. Above him is a blue crystal emoji thing which you shoot at. You shoot it once, done. And the Dalek doesn't even fire back. That's it. Not even a mini game at the end. We've been the only level in the game that you don't have a mini game. That is so disappointing, and it just leaves you on an empty stomach. It kind of makes you thrive for something a bit more. And yeah, that is the first video game that we have talked about on this marathon. Doctor Who has a history of games. However, it's never seemed to have broken the market, with its best attempts being the adventure games, and very recently with the VR experience, and the mobile games being very successful. It's only okay, I tell a lie. The Doctor Who has now, in recent memories, has a good track record with games. However, prior to 2018, I believe the first one is called I think it's The Runaway. I think it's called The Runaway. But prior to that, Doctor Who had been known for not having some very good games, with the exception of some tie-ins like the Doctor, the 12th Doctor, all 12 Doctors appearing in the Lego game, stuff like that. So this was part of that period in time where Doctor Who just didn't have a good footwork in the gaming market, which seems to be the only market for a long time that Doctor Who just had not conquered. It looked like the fact that it was on an official game and it cost so much money and was a big talking point between BBC and Nintendo. This felt like this could have easily been the start of a brand new era. And the fact that we didn't have some pretty decent games for free with the adventure games, and this game having a very similar mechanic to it, you thought that this was a recipe to success. However, not only is this game bad, it is, as I've stated before, considered by many as the worst Wii game ever made. I don't know about that. However, I can easily say it's the worst Wii game I've ever played. And like I said, that is saying something. So, fuck this game. Fuck everything. I just threw it on the floor. So, that's the Return to Earth overall. Don't bother. It's dull, it's needless. It's actually something which I guess you can anti-recommend. It's something which I recommend you avoid if all possible. Again, it's not that it's so difficult, it's so hard, but rather it's just so dull. It's so uninteresting, and just when after I finish it, I'm like, okay, I'm done. And on that case, I'm done talking about Return to Earth. Fuck that game. So join me next time where the Doctor and Amy will be fighting some sort of werewolf creature in, hold on, I can't remember what it's called. The Hounds of Amynus. So I'll see you next time for the Hounds of Amynus. And I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra.